Well, hello there, render friends. It is Nick here with another Greyscalegorilla podcast. And today we have an interview. In fact, we have an extra special interview with our good buddy, Andy Needham. If you haven't met Andy, he's been doing Cinema 4D teaching and training for over 5 years now. He's such a nice guy. Wait till you hear this guy's accent. We're extra excited to have him working on some R21 training over at Greyscalegorilla Plus, which might even be out by the time you hear this. Now, in today's interview, we get into some of Andy's favorite new features of Cinema 4D R21. We go over some tips on how to make money as a freelancer, and he'll tell you how having good grammar might just land you your next job. We had an extra fun interview today, learning a lot more about Andy. So without further ado, let's jump into our interview with Andy Needham. Well, hello there, handsomes and beautifuls. Welcome back to the Greyscalegorilla podcast. We have an extra special episode here. We have none other than Andy Needham from across the pond, they say. Andy, how are you, good sir?
Yeah, very well, Nick. Thanks for having me on.
Wonderful. Andy's over in London, so I got up early. Andy's already what time you got over there? You're rolling a little later, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's about 3 in the afternoon for me.
Well, thanks for joining us, man. We're gonna dig into Andy and how he's been a part of the Cinema 4D community for so long. We've been buddies for a long time, but seeing each other out now, out in LA, out in Vegas for NAB, and just wanted to dig a little bit more into your history with Cinema 4D and talk a little bit more about what the heck's happening these days. But Andy, what have you been up to lately? What's keeping you busy?
Well, most recently is definitely recording some training for GSG Plus, and that's been a lot of fun to do, and just really getting stuck into R21 as well. On the surface, it might not seem like one of these major releases, but there's some really cool features in there, and we're going to dig into that in the training as well.
Yeah, and I think you're right. When this happens all the time with new versions. It'll be like a big fancy version with all these really visually sexy things, and then they'll come out with a little bit more of a reserved update that tends to take a little bit of time to see really what is going to be the big hit. So what are you finding in the new version of R21? And we're excited to have you in the training too, by the way. I know you've been digging really deep into the beta and looking into what's in R21. What's the kind of secret feature in R21 that people maybe should be a little bit more excited about?
I mean, I think that it won't be so secret because I think it's one of the major things because and it's field forces. I think that's a really cool way of making Cinema 4D particles fun again, and also just what you can do with dynamics and any dynamic object in C4D. Then it's it's a really cool feature and one that does take a little bit to get your head around, but I guess you can, once you crack it, it's very powerful, and I think it's going to open up a lot of new ways of working with not only MoGraph but dynamic objects as well, because you can make emit a dynamic particle that's in like a cloner or something, and you've got all of MoGraph available and all of dynamics, and then you can send it around the scene using the field force. It's deep. It's deep. So
It
yeah,
it
it's what
was
it
it's
what
definitely one. Yeah, go ahead.
well, I mean, it's really combining a lot of the forces, but you're making a custom thing. And I mean, those are people that are familiar with X particles. They have the flow field, and it's a similar concept to that. So, but all there inside of Cinema 4D, and yeah, I think it's pretty
Now,
cool.
when I first started playing with this, because I've been digging around more in R21 lately too, and I got some tutorials and training, I'm working on, and that was definitely the one that had the most secret power. I was like, there's something in here with this new field forces that I don't quite get. And then as I dug in more and more and more, it started to unlock the potential. But what you reminded me of is that it really works everywhere. Now, I know it works with rigid body dynamics and, like you said, some of the particles, but what are some other ways, like that you can use field forces, and what are the other parts of cinema that it connects with?
Yeah. Well, you've got cloth and hair, and thinking particles as well. There's a really simple setup. It's just a two-node setup just to pass any thinking particle group onto a field force. And a field force, or a force object, in fact, in thinking particles, can be even the old forces. So you can still use things like attractor and friction and things like that, and those are still useful. It's just that if you really wanted to build something really custom, like sending particles along a path, then you can do that really easily with the field force.
That's what cracked me up. Is like thinking particles are back.
Yeah, who yeah, who would have thought it?
It's they've been kind of sitting there, and yeah, it was obviously a powerful feature when it came out, but that was years ago,
Yeah.
right? And there really hasn't been anything other than rigid body dynamics, that you could kind of add to these particles that really let thinking particles breathe. But now with some really simple thinking particles and this field forces,
Mm.
and I've seen some of your stuff that you're working on, and I've been playing with it more too. You could pull off some really intricate stuff. Now, not quite as detailed, obviously, as some X particles setups, but you can get pretty far. What's and what have you been kind of building with this stuff? Like what can yeah, I'm hoping that this interview comes out around when R21 is launched, so that maybe the people out there actually are downloading it right now, maybe listening to this. What can they start to build with this field forces that is maybe something they couldn't pull off before?
Yeah, I think something they probably couldn't pull off before is just being able to, like I said, something that seems so simple, like just sending, directing particles, actually having that control over, if, the standard emitter. You couldn't just say, I want it to now curve around without maybe animating it on a curve or something. I don't even know how I think, but now you would just draw out the spline path and just set up the field force in a way that the vectors point along the path, and then you know give yourself enough frames or enough speed in the particles, and you're away. So what this field force is doing is just either adding to the velocity or changing the direction of the particles, maintaining the velocity. But you can then incorporate other fields inside the field force to do other things. So you could add to the speed or subtract from the speed. So you can there's so many possibilities to what you can do now with them. So I think it's one of those things where you'll just be like, first, like, how on earth do I even use this? Because first of all, you've got to know how the fields are visualized, and you just need to think about it. Yeah, I found it easiest to think about it in a 2D view, because you're looking at these vectors in 3D, and it's just a load of kind of tick marks, really, and it's just a mess. And so you want to kill off an axis, and just look at it. Either, I mean, in one of my examples, we just work in the top view mainly because we can just see exactly what's going on, and then when you jump into perspective view, it's like, yeah, it still makes sense now. So yeah, there's some key things just to get your head around, and I think when we were talking about it, there was just another great feature is um, being able to build volumes in the volume builder, so vector volumes, which you can then drive a field force as well. So, but we were saying, how do I get something to emit along the surface of an object? And there's a specific mode in the vectors that you can use to do that. And yeah, and once it's like a few key things, and then you've got it all opened up for you.
Well, I'm excited to dig deeper into R21 and learn a little bit more about what you've been playing with. But I wanted to take a step back a little bit and talk about a little bit how you got into all this stuff. How'd you get into 3D, and also how did you get into teaching? Because you've been teaching for quite a while now. I know you've been working with LinkedIn Learning, and which used to be Linda. We're excited to have you here working with us at Grayscale Gorilla, and you've just been you've also run the X Particles challenges back, and I think you might. I don't want to tease anything, but maybe you have one
Yeah,
of those coming up
yeah,
soon.
yeah,
But you've been helping and being a part of this community for a while, how did you first get into 3D and motion design and all this stuff?
So, oops. Yeah, I mean, I first got into 3D at university, and I was using 3D Studio Max at the time, just to do simple animations, little animated films and stuff like that as just part of the course, and that was just a taste of getting into 3D. And then when I finished uni, I actually switched over to a Mac, and I couldn't use 3ds Max anymore, and so I thought, okay, well, what's available? And tried Maya, didn't like it. Um, couldn't understand Blender at the time. I still can't probably. I just haven't checked. But yeah, then there's this thing, Cinema 4D, and I think I even saw on the back of a magazine or in a 3D magazine or something. I was like, oh yeah, there's an advert for this, and I looked at the small print, and their office was just around the corner from my parents' house. So I went around to Maxon UK and just bought a copy. Took my two credit cards with me because I knew I'd have to max them both out to get everything that I wanted. And yeah, I met with Liam Stacey there, and he was happy to sell me. Well, it was, I think, was it 9.6? I can't remember. I got all the modules at the time as well. You know,
Oh, yes, the modules.
yeah. I was like,
We've come a long way since, 20 different boxes you could buy to now just one thing,
it's
which I'm so excited for.
yeah. I'm really happy about that. It's just Studio now, and everyone gets everything. That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like you got in right around when I did, 9 or 9.5, I think, or maybe 8 something. It was, uh, for the old timers like me, it was like the Duck Race DVDs were a part of the training
Uh,
that came built in.
hmm.
And before Mo Dynamics, or maybe that's
Yeah.
right when they introduced it. It was right around there where they introduced maybe 10 or 11 was Mo Dynamics, and then the actual Dynamics. So
Yeah.
you got into it too for a lot of the reasons that a lot of people did around kind of when I started as well, which was you had a Mac, you couldn't use some of the PC only ones, and when you did try them, they were a little bit complex. So
Mm.
was what was it about Cinema 4D that kind of hooked you once you finally saw their interface or their way of working?
Yeah, I mean, for one, the interface was always a lot friendlier, and it just seemed like you could just create straight away. And that's still true today, even though they've just revamped the interface. It's still the same old C4D that you know and love. There might be some things in different places now because they've actually gone through and organized things, but you can for now at the moment switch back to a legacy menu if you really wanted to, but I think they'll phase that out in the next release anyway. Yeah, it was easy to get in and create. And also I was looking at I think a website called Studio Daily, and they had a feature there where they were showing the After Effects integration, and I was like, I need this. That's what I need. And it was just it was just like I want to add 3D and I want to be able to integrate with After Effects as well, and easily send null objects over to After Effects so I can do more stuff in post, and it was things like that 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 was the main draws, I think. Yeah.
So as you started learning more about this and learning Cinema 4D, what came? Did you start working in a studio? Did you start freelancing right away? What was your kind of path to doing the stuff for a living? I know a lot of our audience is always like finding that path, or they might be in the middle of it. They might be just starting off in that path. So how did you go from like interested in 3D, discovering Cinema 4D, to actually like getting that first paycheck, or what was that story?
Yeah, I think what I did primarily was I did a lot of editing, and I was, it was more of a 2D role where I was straight out of uni. I kind of got this kind of internship type job where I was I was just working with a new fairly new production company. I think they're only like a year or two old, and so I was just going there and getting pretty much paid my train fare. Just covered my travel and stuff like that, just to kind of go there. And this was in a place in London, um, and so yeah, it was only like a 45-minute train or whatever, but I could just go there and sort of edit and do the day-to-day stuff and do some motion graphics and things like that. And then, like the interest in 3D, like I was saying, I wanted to add like another dimension to the work. So that's when it kind of became interested in C4D. So I would just kind of learn that on my own. I know it was a big investment to kind of put down, but I knew that I could see it in my future, I guess. I was just like, I'm going to be doing a lot of this stuff. So, and I think from there, it was just a case of practicing. And at the time, there wasn't any YouTube or anything like that. And like I think Video Copilot wasn't obviously doesn't do didn't do 3D stuff, but it was it's that time when it was like he had two or three videos on Video Copilot, and still kind of selling DVDs and things like that. Um, and I'm sure you remember those days as well. Like you probably I think I remember you saying you got VHSs to learn off and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, don't judge me, people. This is before YouTube, okay?
Yeah,
This
just
is it's a while back.
yeah, yeah. We were putting in the enhanced CD into that drive, which doesn't exist anymore.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's just I had enough of an interest to kind of keep at it and keep practicing and just sort of learning through either just playing around with the software and obviously looking at the help files, which have always been great in Cinema 4D. Actually, it's always had really good documentation, and I think on the on the on the actual path to becoming a professional, I think it was just a case of uh, integrating it and into work and actually just saying like, yeah, I can do this, and you know, being given a chance and stuff. Probably just throwing myself in at the deep end on projects as well, just to kind of you know learn on the job as well. uh,
That's the best time to learn
well,
when it's all on the line.
on
You
the line, yeah.
gotta
They're like, "Can you do it?" Of course. I'm just going to go and learn it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not a problem. I'll be over staring at the screen for the next 48 hours straight. But you come away with figuring out that final bit. There's nothing like an actual project to really show you what you don't quite know yet. I remember always rendering and testing things out, and I felt like I even knew a lot more about Cinema 4D than I obviously did. And then I went to go do my an actual real project, and they wanted a different frame rate.
Mm.
And I was like, that is something I never had to deal with. Like, I literally never had to go find the frame rate button because I was so worried about all the cloners and all the dynamics and all the buttons. And then there's nothing like an actual project with a real client that makes you go, oh, okay, I got to
Yeah.
learn how to change some really basic stuff,
Yeah.
but things you just don't bump into till that client's yelling at you, or your boss is yelling at you.
Yeah. That's it, isn't it? I think going back to that about having a project or a goal or something, that's usually the best way of learning as well. You can see an ending in sight, and then you can take the steps to actually get there. And yeah, obviously having the fundamentals down is just very important as well. Like understanding your project settings where you can change the frame rate, and also the making sure that it matches your render settings as well, and things that not every not every tutorial is going to teach you, because it's not glossy, it's not pretty stuff. It's just like, this is the stuff that you have to kind of do, and as a professional you need to know this. Yeah.
So how did you take that into teaching? What got you first into teaching all this stuff?
Well, um I guess, I mean, I was probably inspired by people like you. You were putting out a lot of content, and I was absorbing a lot of it. I remember back in the days, and I mean, I guess when Vimeo came along and you've got all these things like that, you just it kind of made it easy for people to record, and upload something and just put it out there, even if it's just, oh, I want to remember this at another time. Um, and I think, that's what got me kind of into. I mean, I got into just kind of making a few tutorials and into actually doing proper training. I was this is like jumping ahead a few years now, to, I mean, because I was doing that around sort of 20, the Vimeo stuff, maybe 2009, 10, I'm not sure, something
Mm.
around that time. And it was around that time as well that I was getting interested in, going to NAB and things like that. And from there, that was the key really to kind of meeting people that I, well, that on the internet, and kind of opening up your network and getting to know the people that at Maxon US, for example. But I also met Rob Garrett at NAB, and also EJ and my buddy Josh Johnson as well. And it's through kind of, well, Josh and Rob for sure, who I was I got an email from Rob Garrett saying, "Hey, you know, Josh." I was talking to Josh about maybe doing some training, but he is actually his schedule's too busy, and would you be interested in doing some training for Linda? And I was like, of course. And I guess I had to just I had to send a test and kind of make sure I fit their style and that I sounded okay. Um, and yeah, I mean that kind of opened it up and got me into it. But I mean, without going to Vegas to actually do those initial meetings and actually kind of face to face things, I guess it could have been a different story. So
Yeah, it's amazing how many stories I
and
hear that always have
yeah,
that personal connection, and you know, the internet is amazing, and all these Slack channels are amazing, and the people that you can meet and learn from is just crazy. We're talking about learning from VHS tapes, and now we could do all this, but there's still no replacement yet. They haven't figured it out in VR, but there's no replacement yet for like actually going and trying to meet these people and shaking their hands. And I agree, like it's like getting in that room. You never know who you're going to meet that
mm,
is going to change your career. So like
yeah,
meeting Rob. Rob's such a great guy. Hi,
yeah,
Rob. If I don't
yeah.
know if you're listening, Rob,
Uh,
but I'm just going to say hi anyway
I,
because I miss you.
I love Rob. He's awesome.
And meeting someone like that, or like you said, the Maxon US crew
Yeah,
is such an amazing group of people,
yeah.
and that
And
is
we met in Vegas, didn't we, for the first
yeah,
time?
we met in
Yeah.
Vegas too.
Because I mean, we did a project together over the internet, but then it was like, yeah, gonna meet you, gonna come to NAB, say hang out. Yeah,
It really is amazing, and that's people ask all the time, like, is it worth it to go to these shows?
yeah,
Um,
mm.
and what I always come away with is like, well, I don't know. The show itself is like that's just like cement and carpet and lights and whatever. And like in Vegas is there's just too much to drink and too much to gamble, all this other dumb stuff. You
Yeah,
really want to go just for the people that all decide to go and the people that all decide to like meet each other. So
yeah,
yeah, that's right. That's where I met most people. That's where I met you, buddy.
yeah.
Oh,
I think, I mean, it's you know, that's where the real value is in going to those things. If you and I don't think, you need to be shy or anything like that, because you most of the time, it's a welcoming community as well. So I'd say, anyone who's thinking about going out there, then you should definitely give it one go at least. And if Vegas isn't your thing, then there's other shows as well, and there's other things like SIGGRAPH's just happened as well. I mean, I'm going to be presenting at IBC for Maxon this year, and that's another one, but it's in Amsterdam. I've never been to that show before. I'm really looking forward to actually doing it because yeah, you get a different vibe, I think, over there. European vibe, and there's
Gotta
I'm really
get out
excited.
there.
There's some of the presenters are like, wow, I'm actually going to get to meet some of these people. This is great. So yeah, it always gives me, and even presenting with Max on in Vegas as well. It's always like a special honor. If I always kind of, I don't know. It's great to just be in that lineup because it's most of the time it's just people that you're just like have such respect for. So and you get to hang out with them for a week.
That's right. That's the end. You need to come out, say hi in Vegas. That's what basically what we're trying to tell you right now.
That's it. Yeah.
So you
Let's
you
get
actually
going.
mentioned it. We talked a little bit about, uh, if you're learning, you're trying to get into all this stuff, like actually going to these events matter a lot. Meeting the people that do this stuff for a living. I would even also recommend just local stuff. Whatever your local thing
Absolutely.
is, even if it's not quote 3D or Cinema 4D, like if it's even remotely close to what you do, if it's an advertising thing or editing or After Effects or photography, I don't know, just like go out and meet these people that do this stuff and are interested in this stuff is so big. But what's another thing from your kind of history or from your viewing this as a teacher that some students or freelancers or people out there that are trying to like get the next leg up on their career, what's another thing that they could focus on? I know you mentioned the fundamentals a little bit earlier, but what else it can a freelancer or a student or an artist focus on to kind of get that next part of their career up and running?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it doesn't even have to be anything to do with creative software or anything like that. I think maybe just it could be improving your skills with clients. They some of the soft skills maybe, I don't know, but being able to craft an email correctly is really important. I think to actually you know getting a client's attention or maintaining a relationship as well. And what we're doing through motion graphics is communicating. You're communicating an idea or something. You're taking the client's vision and putting it onto a screen of sorts. And you should have good communication skills yourself to be able to kind of level up as well. I think yeah, I'd say so. Communicate.
God, that's a huge one. I literally wrote that down as like another potential whole episode or video or something. Like that is such a part of the industry we don't talk enough about. And I know even when I started Grayscale Gorilla, I started working with doing more email and just connecting with people, which I was shielded from as just an artist in a production studio. The producers would do all that stuff, right?
Mm.
They would do the bids and they would sign the like make the tough email. And all of a sudden I was in a place where I needed to learn those skills. And man, I definitely there was no YouTube video about it, that's for sure.
Mm.
I literally had to just reach out to some producer friends and say, how do I even negotiate this? Or how do I give a price for something like this? I don't even know where to start with this. And that's a huge one. That's amazing.
you
How did you go through that process? Like, where did you learn how to bid or talk to clients or write these, communicate with your clients or people you work with better? Where did you learn those skills?
I guess I don't know. I've always been interested in maybe writing and things like that. So, and I'm kind of a bit of a stickler for grammar and things like that. So, I think things like that are important. They show your attention to detail. And if you're misspelling words or not using your or their correctly, in simple things, right? Maybe this is just me, and I'm a bit kind of I don't know, a bit like that. But anyway, I mean, the point being is if you're kind of not showing attention to detail at that stage, how's a client going to trust you with thousands of dollars or pounds worth of of a project, to because you they want to ensure that um you're gonna pay attention to it. And and kind of deliver, you know, a product that's of quality. And so I don't know, that may not be the case for everybody, and some people won't be, you know, strict or even care. But it's, for me, if it, you know, something comes across into my inbox and it's just like a poorly worded or whatever, you know, they haven't even taken the chance to read it twice, you know, just to check things through, then yeah, I mean, that tells me that I'm going to get something back and it's going to have an error somewhere, you know, because you haven't watched it back again or something like that, you know. And eye for detail is really important when you get into bigger budget things.
That is amazing. You're making me think about 3 emails I just wrote earlier today, like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
Gotta check, I got my yours and yours, but man, sometimes I speed through those things. No, that's important, that especially working with clients like that, the idea that they're trusting you with their brand, they're trusting you with their work, they're trusting you with their logo in some cases,
Mm,
and right, they want that, at the end, I always forget this too, um uh, at the end of a lot of these jobs, it's mostly customer service is what you're doing for a living. You are working with other people that call on you to provide a service, and it's those skills, those softer skills like communication, um, you're just showing that you're trustworthy, showing that done this in the past. All these things that are not your really sexy real
mm.
really come into play as an artist. And I've always loved that about your work and the way that you kind of work with people. And I think that's an amazing lesson for someone listening out there.
Yeah.
Um, all right, so look, I all this R21 stuff happened. I want to jump a little bit back into that because I mean, selfishly, I'm gonna start recording even some more R21 stuff next week, and I want to learn from the guy that's been playing with it for for how long now. So you're playing around in 21, and you actually showed me something that is, I think, also new that um I didn't know until our creative director Chad brought it up. He goes, there are the user data tag
Yeah.
is he had a question specifically about it, which is um he didn't know that it even existed until he watched you play with it. And so now we both have questions, which is, what is the power of this thing? Because you sent me over a rig that you built with it that I was playing with and making some amazing stuff with. What is the user data tag in R21, and how can someone out there listening use this in their work day to day?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tag that can be found in the new. The tags have all been organized, and so you're not going to find them. The ones that you thought were in one place are not going to be there anymore. So that's a thing to note when you're opening up R21. There's no more Cinema 4D tags and then that massive list. You've got to find. You'll find it in the programming tags section now. And what you can do with it, it's such a basic tag on the surface. It doesn't have anything there until you add some user data. But what you can do with it now and with user data is you can essentially create building blocks for your rigs. So you could create a little setup for um, you know a group and a few data points and things like that, and save that as a preset, and then have a few more like that. And you know, you can quickly, if you're building rigs regularly, you could set these things up ahead of time. And then when you come to build something a bit more customized, you go, oh yeah, I need to just grab this and this, and you've loaded in a whole new a new uh, user data rig. Now, wherever you add user data, you can still do that. So that's, that's not unique to the tag. But what you can do with the tag is it's separate from, say, a null object that you're working on. So I could actually take the tag and move it onto another object, and then hide everything that I don't want the end user to see, and keep it nice and clean. So, I think I'm not sure if I did it in the file I sent you, but in the case of that, it was like, here it is. It's one object in the scene, and you just have to drop in, you know, just look at the user data and just do this and this, and it won't break. And I think that's kind of, that's somewhat is, where the power will be. But I think you can dig into it a bit more, and
I
yeah,
literally so I literally open up that scene you sent me,
yeah.
and I'm seeing now that you just hit it all. So is this with now we'll obviously have some visual representation of this, but did you just use layers to hide that, or is that a part of the user data that you hit it that way?
I just use layers to hide it from
That's
the
amazing.
actual object manager. But yeah, on the surface, if this was going to somebody who did not understand, Cinema 4D, and just wanted to, or had just enough knowledge to kind of make a few objects and just drop them into that scene, then it still works for them. And of course, you can dig in and see how it all works if you expose the layers. But
But you could hide it for dummies like me. They're like, don't touch any of this. And what I'm describing for those of you on the podcast. So Andy made this great rig. It's a simple rig, but really powerful, and it allows you to drop any object into this rig and then emit particles from it,
Mm,
similar to how you would have with X particles. But now you could do it with thinking particles, and now you can do it with thinking particles instead of using espresso and thinking particles and all this stuff. He built a user data rig that allows you to drop objects in it, allows you to drop field force in it, I think other forces into it, and get instant particles on this thing. And so what he did smartly, because he knows me well, he hid all the stuff in there, and so all it is one null with a user data that allows me to drop my objects in it. And we could even set up things like particle speed and all this other stuff if we
mm.
wanted to in here. Is that right?
On that one, I think, yeah, we probably have to sort of revisit it. 'Cause I gave you, I can't remember, I gave you a real simple one, didn't I, at first?
Yeah,
Yeah,
this one's real simple, but
yeah.
like a user
Oh, yeah,
could do that, right? Like that's
absolutely.
yeah, that's really powerful.
Yeah,
I think that's definitely something I need to look more into, like building these rigs
y-
that are really powerful that hide all the complexity. I think that's super powerful, man.
you can have multiple user data tags, on the same object as well. So there is some scope for additional things there as well. I think, I'm sure, if uh, if you were, yeah, I think I'm trying to think of other ways of using it, but you could have, this one is specific to this type of set of instructions, and then this one is for this, yeah.
That's pretty amazing. All
Yeah.
right, I'm definitely diving in more today. Well, so while we're talking about 21, and this is why we're so excited to have you as a part of Grayscale Gorilla Plus and bring all this R21 training.
Mm,
Which, if you're listening now and R21 is out, this training should be out. So if you're a Grayscale Gorilla Plus member, just log into your account, and the R21 training should be available day one. And then we also have some tutorials in there that Andy's been working on. I have some tutorials in the works, and we're not only dropping all this training, but also these tutorials. As we learn new things, we can now add new R21 specific tutorials directly to this training. So anyway, if you're a member, just log in and start watching. If you're not a member, go check out Grayscale Gorilla Plus. But let's talk about some of the other things, because you've had more time with R21 than I have for sure. And so, what are the other parts of the new version of R21 that you're excited about, and that you um, we're excited to like to show off? Like what are the real what are the sexy ones that
mm.
are really visual, but also what are the real interface based ones that you're excited about for R21?
Yeah, I mean, I think things are going in this, with this version in the kind of right direction. I like the look and feel of this new interface, and actually going back to our 20 and earlier, you're just like, wow, it's actually, that looks, that dark interface that they had in R20 isn't so dark anymore, and it just doesn't feel, I don't know, it feels a bit more kind of C4D is growing up a little bit in this version, and some of the icons have been given a polish and been redrawn and things like that. I like the fact that you can organize the object manager now with icons. Customize the icons. So, and we go over that as well. So you can, if you're a real nerd for and a stickler for organizing your projects, not only with layers and just maintaining good naming as well. Now you can use custom icons to kind of really visualize the object manager in a clearer way. So at first glance, anyone can just kind of look at it and have that visual trigger of an icon just to kind of go, oh yeah, that's that. And color coding as well. And so, I mean, that might not seem like a, a sexy feature or anything like that, but I think it's a useful one, especially coming back, to a project weeks or months later. All those visual triggers are actually going to help you understand and get back into a project faster. But there's also some new modeling improvements as well. And Cinema 4D has always been used for creating 3D logos and extruding objects and things like that. And that's probably one of the first things anyone getting into Cinema 4D will do. And it may even be someone's day-to-day work, and having new caps and bevel controls on these extrude objects and on Motex and things like that is actually really a nice feature. It also maintains good UVs as well, so it doesn't mess around with any of the textures. And they've made it a lot easier to apply materials to selections as well. You don't have to remember S for shell and the radius, the bevel, and all that kind of stuff. What was it? C1, R1, R2s.
Yeah,
You know,
I remember I had like a Post-it note with those on there back in the day because I can never remember, and I didn't even know that S meant shell. I just knew that S was the outside of things.
yeah,
Never even had like a name for it, but like Cap One and
yeah. Cap
all
one, that
these
was
things,
it. Yeah.
all these things. Yeah, now it's just a checkbox, and you're
It's
right. It's
it's a
not.
checkbox. You can still use the old way, but you can, have a checkbox turn on and a selection tag is created on the object, and you can drag it in if that's how you want to work. But yeah, the old way still works, of course. Just you don't have to guess or remember anymore. So yeah, there's all these new spline controls for the caps and bevel, and so it means that you can really get in there and put something custom on a text or logo or something like that, and have the light and the materials kind of play off those edges in an interesting way. So yeah, you can add way more detail, and it's not just that. You can use it for more fun modeling things, and even building kind of little city structures and things like that. So yeah, I think that's a nice feature, and one that was probably due. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that some of the things you were making with the new bevel was crazy. I know, like the tops of some of those buildings you were showing me,
Yeah.
like is really really detailed stuff that you can get into. And just wanted to take a little bit more time with the interface because I think it's such an easy thing to just say, okay, the interface is different
Yeah.
and say like that's a feature, but they really um, went in and decided uh, where everything should go. It's
Yeah.
and at first glance, you're going to say like, where is everything?
Yep.
And to me, my favorite new feature of R21 is Shift C, which is which is not a new feature, but allows you to find everything that you used to know exactly where it is. But I would say, like, take the time to learn where the new stuff is because what they did was reorganize it. It's like they reorganized the closet. And when you first wake up that next day after you reorganize everything, you're like, oh man, I should have just left it all a mess because at least I knew where everything was.
Yeah.
But if you take a few moments to kind of learn the new layout, where they put everything, and find out where the new the new drawer is for dynamics and the new palettes and all this,
Yeah.
like that, you're going to have a much faster way of working, and that goes with the tags you were mentioning too.
Yeah, exactly. You know that it's this big change, but it's a good change. It's going to be, it's a change that's well, we know that this version of C4D is more about workflow improvements and things like that. And they've worked on even speed improvements as well. I think this is a cool new feature, but we can talk about it in a minute. But yeah, going back to the interface, you have you just get used to it. And also, yeah, Shift C is the commander that also remembers the last thing that you typed as well. So yeah, that can be handy in certain situations, especially if you're, say, working with rendering volumes in ProRender, for example. You'd probably want to type in volume and bring in a volume loader to load something in. And then to actually, if you've got that volume loader still selected, you can just press Shift C and just find the volume tag, which is a new render tag. And, you've saved yourself like running around the interface trying to find those objects. And really, really useful is the new node presets for ProRender, and actually you can use node materials with ProRender now. I mean, I'm not a big ProRender user, but having the ability to easily render volumes with it is actually quite useful as well. And I think may have gone off on a tangent there, but I kind of just started thinking about other new things that were quite fun. And it's always nice to kind of throw in a volume and just kind of render these big explosions or something like that, even if pro render isn't your thing, and it probably isn't. but
Yeah,
but 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 node spaces are really useful, and we currently you can use node materials with standard physical and pro render now. And having an actual space in the node editor that's tailored for the render engine is really, really useful and really powerful. And now it's opened up to it'll be opened up to third parties. I'm going to expect to see Redshift in that list pretty soon. So if you've got Redshift installed and they have taken advantage or taken use of the C4D node space, then yeah, I really do like working with the C4D node editor. I think it's actually a really good thing, and there's some improvements to that too. Just simply, like we were saying, just workflow stuff, just being able to just hold down Control or Command and just drag copy a node. It just seems more intuitive, and I think they're just building on it and just making it more fun to use, really. Yeah.
Yeah, you're mentioning the big word, right? Workflow. That's what this new version's all about to me. And the more I watch even some of your training that's coming in about the nodes, about this obviously the new interface, but also the user data stuff. It's like, okay, I see what's going on. We're speeding up the workflow, and we're building a better core to then build on top of later. Like let's take a minute to rebuild, reorganize, get our interface together, and now Cinema 4D is in a much better place to move forward and add other stuff.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
it's reminding me too that anybody out there that is about to use R21, or depending on when you listen to this, maybe you're already using it, and trying to learn online, that we've had a long history with Cinema 4D of everything mostly being the same. In other words, you can go in and watch a rigid body dynamics tutorial from 10 years ago
Yeah.
on Greyscalegorilla and follow along with R20 almost flawlessly. Maybe I had to go to the reflection menu, but you had to go to the reflectance menu, but it wasn't much different. But I do want to let people know, it's kind of a warning, but just a heads up, that so many things have moved and have changed. For the most part, the naming hasn't changed. So I think if you hear a word on a tutorial somewhere, um, it's probably in the interface somewhere, but
Yeah.
you might have to Shift C to find it rather than go to the exact menu that the teacher went to.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things we've never had to even deal with Cinema 4D, because they've been so consistent with their interface. But this is the line in the sand for organizing it. So I think it's a good move long term. But I do want to warn those of you watching tutorials online that may be even a couple years old now, that if something is missing or changed, that it's might be because of R2021. And I'll say this too: not only have things moved, but the defaults have
Yeah, I was
changed.
just about to say. Yeah.
Yeah, and
So
that's tripped me up a
yeah.
couple times, and I think they did a good job in choosing new defaults. But here's a really good example. I'm going to do this live so I don't mess this up.
Mhm.
I'm going to open up Cinema. I'm going to open a MoGraph cloner, which I've done a million times in tutorials in my career. And I'm going to go to Grid Array,
Oh, yeah.
which I've also done a million times. And here's what I see different already. It is not a default 3 by 3 by 3 grid. It's a 3 by 1 by 3 grid. And instead of it being endpoint mode, which means as you add more clones, they just all clump up, it's in per step mode, which means as I add more clones and more counts in my grid array, it just kind of makes the area bigger.
Yeah.
Now, for me, I think those are great defaults. Like I can go in and crank up the number really high and have all these clones on the floor instantly. But if I were following along on a tutorial, they might just go ride through with the defaults, and I'm stuck here like, wait, mine doesn't look like yours.
I think there's going to be a lot of that, and you were talking about dynamics as well. You don't those the collision tab on that. There's changes to the bounce and friction now, and you don't have to. I mean, I don't know about you. If you're the same as me, we'd probably always go in and change them so that there was more friction and less bounce. And
Uh-huh.
yeah, and now you don't have to do that because it's set up correctly, or correctly in kind of air quotes there. But to my taste, it's much better.
It's definitely a lot more physically, like visually pleasing too, or visually realistic.
Yeah,
That's another perfect example where you might set up your cloner and your thing to match exactly what the training is, and all of a sudden none of your clones are sliding on the ground as much as the
yeah.
video.
No,
But
they look good now. What's going on? Yeah,
yeah, what's happening?
yeah,
They're actually sticking to the ground.
yeah. That
But those are the things all over the place. Like you'll just even just some of the default geometry you
oh,
open up have different presets. So
create a
it's
sphere.
yeah, create a sphere,
I mean, you've done
different
that a few
defaults.
times.
The only thing I've done more than make a cloner is create a sphere,
Yeah,
Andy.
yeah.
But it
Yeah.
yeah, it's just something to watch out for. And I know, Andy, you have a whole uh series just on the new interface changes and things to watch out
Yeah.
for exactly that.
Yeah,
So
we go
that's
into
why,
the defaults. Sorry, yeah, yeah, we do. Yeah,
yeah, I'm so happy you're here helping us out and bringing your training expertise and your Cinema 4D expertise to Greyscalegorilla Plus. We're so excited to have you here. And man, I'll be watching your node one, I think, today. I need I need to learn these nodes fine. I know not for pro render necessarily, but
mm,
if Redshift's going to incorporate these nodes, I think I finally have to kind of dive in and start to actually learn the nodes. I cheated with the nodes, by the way.
mm.
I got our material pack, our everyday material collection, and just snuck away without needing to learn nodes. But I think that that's only gonna take me as so far. As soon as I want to jump into something, I'm gonna need to learn a little bit more. So
Yeah, I think that's it, really, isn't it? And there are ways of easing yourself into it, into nodes, just by maybe working with the Uber material, for example. If you're still using standard or physical, you still have that familiar interface with channels effectively on the left, and what you can change on the right. And when you want to dive into nodes, you can. If you wanted to get deeper with something in the bump channel, then yeah, you'd probably want to open the node editor and start layering up some noises and things like that. So yeah, there's ways of just gradually dipping your toe in and getting more comfortable with it. But as you say, if you want to level up, then get into nodes. I think it's the way it's
it's time.
going. Yeah, it's time.
Okay, I'll learn it. Fine, Andy. I'll do it. Well, thank you for your time, man. I wanted to uh let people know where they could find more about Andy. You got your website here at imcalledandy.com.
Yep.
And of course, your Instagram feed, which is the same username. I'm called Andy. IMCALLED. And that's Andy.
Yeah.
Boom. Go
Great.
say hi to Andy. Let him know. Tell him thanks for being on the podcast as well. And anywhere else you want people to come say hi to Andy if they're interested in learning more about you.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I've got Twitter, LinkedIn, anything like that. I mean, you can find me with the same handle pretty much anywhere. And yeah, just say hi and uh, who knows? Or not. It's up to you.
That's right. Well, thank you, Andy. Thanks for your time, and
Hey,
thanks for joining us at Greyscalegorilla Plus. We're so excited to get your training out there,
thanks for having me.
and always excited to have you on the podcast. And for those of you checking out Greyscalegorilla Plus, don't forget to go check it out. Andy did an amazing job on the training, and we got even more tutorials coming any minute now. So go check it out at grayscalegorilla.com/plus. And Andy, thank you so much again for your time. And we'll be seeing you around the Grayscale Gorilla soon. And until then, I really appreciate your time, man.
Thank you very much, Nick. Appreciate being on as well. And I would just want to say I'm actually really excited to be a part of this plus GSG Plus as well. And looking at some of the courses that are coming up, I'm actually like really excited to check them out too. Yeah, so I would encourage anyone to just get in there and have a look. Not just for my stuff. There's some really cool stuff coming along.
I appreciate that, man. And thanks again. And we'll get you on the podcast again soon, man.
Thanks, mate.
Have a good one.
Cheers.
Bye, Andy.
Bye.